Welcome to the Pantheon.Plus Rewind.
Hey everybody, well it's only been 2 weeks, but welcome back to a normal episode of the Rewind. I want to thank Kevin Jordan one more time for an excellent discussion. We hope you all enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. If you aren't familiar with the show, or you're just checking out for the first time, the Rewind is all about digging into the community discussion and official discussions out there across various social media platforms in regards to Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. We put a show out every Sunday, and you can watch it live with us on YouTube, or even download it on Spotify or iTunes. So I keep saying we, and by we, I mean my dashing co-host and I, Theric. Yeah, right? Theric, it's only been 2 weeks, but it weirdly feels like forever since we did a regular show. So how's life?
Yeah, it does feel like it's been a while. It's strange how you get so into the rhythm of the weekly show, and then we get sort of a 2-for-1, and we don't do it for a couple of weeks, and it feels like it's like you miss it. But other than missing the show, I'm doing pretty well actually. Today is my I just finished my last shift today. I'm off for 2 weeks now, and so it's the start of my Christmas holidays, which is awesome. Work has been really a rough go the last week or so I need this holiday, and I've been looking forward to doing the show all day. I've been looking forward to this all day, and it's my time to shine, and my time to take my brain off real world stuff and talk about Pantheon. So I'm in.
Let's do it, man. I'll tell you, makes me a little mad when I hear people getting 2 weeks off of work at this time of year. I've been in retail since 2002, so this time of year is living hell. So I'm happy that you're happy, and I will hopefully just feel some of your good vibes to help me through what is otherwise holiday hell. So
I'll send some Christmas cheer your way.
There you go. There you go. All right, well, let's get started.
Yeah.
This week in Visionary Realms news and notes.
All right, so let's talk about things going on in the world of VR and recap some of their social media tweets. But I'll tell you, and before we get to Twitter, like we normally do every week, there was a very important discussion that came up at the end of the VOT roundtable. We did a community roundtable. If you haven't heard it, check out the VOT Twitch page to see that video. And we had a bunch of content creators, and we also were fortunate enough to have Ben Dean and Joppa there for a pretty long session, to be honest. It was a very long session. And towards the end, they asked a question, and the basic question was, is there anything that you would want to dispel? And I jumped in, as I always do, annoyingly, and tried to be like, hey, wait, I got to say something here. And I went into a little bit of a rant about Pantheon being an EQ clone. So what I'd like to do is let's jump back, let's rewind, and I'm going to play that audio for you. Then me and Theric will come back to discuss it. So here you go. I'm going to get myself in trouble here with some of the community, so this could be bad, but you guys talked about something you want to dispel. Just the thought process here, Joppa or MacLeod, you do not have to comment on this, but there's this myth that's constantly lived within this, like that this game is like an EQ clone. It's going to be EQ. It's going to be EQ. And it's funny because the FAQ, the number one thing it said on the old website was this game is not a clone of EQ. We're going to be its own game. Do you guys want to put anything in there, or you don't have to, but comment on the fact that, this word modern MMORPG is like this curse word in the MMO community, but what it means is modern has existed. Modern is an English word, and it means evolution, right? It means now. Anything you guys want to comment about Pantheon standing on its own? Because I personally feel like, and I think a lot of the community feels like, that this game is going to harken back to EQ, and it's going to remember things that made EQ big and important that have been forgotten, but the Pantheon's going to be its own game. Any comment on that?
I'm elated to hear you say that, because that's exactly it. Yes, we know those tenets, and they are tenets, to bring back where reputation matters, where community matters, where you need other people, where you have memorable experiences, and that's huge. That goes into every fiber of the game. But yeah, we're not remaking EverQuest. We're making a 2020 game that has those tenets.
Nice.
I'm a guy.
So I'll ask one more of ours, and then we'll jump into the community questions as best we can.
Whoa.
Huh?
That's a big one to just float past, because that's so EQ clone. I think you have to think about what that actually means, because EverQuest, when you look at EverQuest from a design perspective, it's an extremely simple game, right? I mean, we're talking very simple in terms of actual gameplay systems. EverQuest was the first like 3D MMORPG experience. It was one of the first times that, you know, people in their teenage years, which I was, we were just being introduced to the concept of the internet, chat rooms, and now all of a sudden you've got this like persistent online world where you can talk to people just like a chat room, meet real people, develop real relationships, and do it all within the context of this incredible like RPG experience. And you're talking about like just this mind-blowing thing where now 2 decades later, like more so, that's old hat. Like that's normal. Like that's totally normal. So when you think about, okay, what does an EQ clone actually mean? A true EQ clone would be an incredibly simplistic game with very simple mechanics and very bare bones stuff, which, you know, judging from even just our pre-alpha sessions so far, we can't get our differentiating systems online fast enough, because it's amazing like how quickly people grow weary of that, go out into the world, kill things, loot things, level up. So I think it's really important to say that like what EverQuest did was it defined a type of MMORPG experience. It defined a type of experience that is has not, in my opinion anyway, has not been replicated in spirit. I'm not saying it hasn't been, you know, specific mechanic wise. And so a lot of what Pantheon is setting out to do is look back at that classic era of EverQuest and vanilla World of Warcraft and some of the things that made those games so impactful from a high level experience point of view. Things like social interaction, things like challenge with actual risk, you know, associated with it. Things like immersion and you know, a game that felt more like you were living in and engaging with a more of a real world than a kind of facade of a game lobby theme park type experience. But then what we're doing is we're taking 20 years of MMOs, 20 plus years of MMO games and development and progress and evolution. And we're saying like, okay, what gives Pantheon the right, like what gives Pantheon the right to stand up among so many peers and demand attention? Like that's the way that I'm looking at Pantheon. And some of that is unapologetically embracing some of those tenets, those potentially in some cases polarizing, or at least, you know, some tenets that not the mass populations of people won't immediately warm to. That's some of it. But a lot of it too, and more so, is looking at how to take some of these fundamental systems that make these games so good and so fun and sticky and evolve them in a way that feels fresh. And so there's so much to say there, but I hope that there are not still those who think that Pantheon at any point in time, today or, you know, 6-7 years ago, was ever about just reskinning EverQuest. That was never the plan, never the goal. The goal is to be a renaissance of that era of what made those games so good and almost kind of this unique breed in terms of their philosophy, and then find that place in the modern gamut.
All right, there. So there it is. That's Joppa and Ben talking a little bit about this whole EQ clone situation that sort of hovered around the community, I would say. There's definitely this group that wants this game to be more like EverQuest. And it seems like anytime something is different than EverQuest or changed from EverQuest, this side of the community gets very upset. Almost like they're declaring they're being lied to. And I'm not going to say who, but a very reputable member of the community actually came out and even said this last week in the Discord. basically saying, if VR isn't going to be making a game that's going to be very close to EQ, why don't they just come out and say it? And it frustrated me so much hearing that. And I actually, right away was like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, they've said that in the FAQ forever. And another person in the community used the Wayback Time Machine to go back and look at updates and stuff to web pages, and actually found that in 2015 is when that quote was in the FAQ, the very first line about how this is going to be a modern MMORPG that harkens back to some of the spirit that made the classic MMOs so great, the spirit that's been forgotten. So, to me, hearing Joppa elegantly, really passionately as well, get into this topic made me feel great, because I don't know how people can continue to think that Pantheon's been trying to sell them on this bill of rights about being the next EQ, because they never have. So you've been following the game a little bit longer than me. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. It's hard to see the future. When you ask people to, describe the future, people have different visions and people have different understandings of what the future holds. What's easy to do is look back and see what the past has. And that's safe. That doesn't take any risk. That doesn't take any sort of imagination or belief, faith, if you will, to understand that not recreating the past is something that can be done successfully. I think one of the big things, obviously, Brad MacLeod being involved with this project from day one, there's that thread, there's that through line from EverQuest to Vanguard to Pantheon, right? So people want to see a throwback as something that, a carbon copy, when that's not what it is at all. And when you listen to that clip and you hear Joppa, like you said, so passionately, he really wanted to make that point very clearly that, you can play EverQuest still. You can play a copy of EverQuest. There's ways to do that. And it's like I said, it's easy to have no vision or to have a view of the past, but it's not easy to have a vision of the future. And I think that's really what it boils down to. And I think when they say things like classically spirited or with some roots in the past, but a modern version or a modern update, a new take on that sort of spirit, that's hard to understand because that's not very specific. And we've spent a long time following this game. We dig into the specifics of what exactly that means. And when that doesn't match with what you think or with you and an assumption or maybe a supposition you've had about the game, I think that can be difficult for people to hear. And I think it's about keeping an open mind and understanding that things evolve, things change, and you can do the past. Anybody can go out there and just remake something, but it takes somebody special. It takes somebody with a special vision to move that idea, take that idea, and put it into a modern implementation, I guess you would say. So that's my long answer of why I think maybe people have a hard time with this concept, I guess, and why there's maybe there's some resistance to it sometimes.
And it's interesting because when you go down the path, and where I stand on this, I've been very vocal that the difficult grouping, camping, open world, rare items, right? That kind of thing. Those are spirits of EverQuest, and those are things I love. I love them.
Sure.
But it's funny because as soon as I start talking about evolving from that, making a game that works today, everyone's like, oh, well, you don't like EQ. No. I like things that I did 20 years ago, but I don't want to live 20 years ago. I want to live now. And society has changed and technology has changed. Our intelligence in playing these games has changed. And one of the things that Joppa said that I know some people got fired up about is he said EQ in itself is a very simple game. And it is. There isn't a lot to that game, especially in the era that most of us played it. And it's interesting to me that people don't want to see that evolved because they're so afraid it's not going to be good or it's not going to be what they want. But Joppa had a quote in there, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but he said, we've had 20 plus years of development in this genre since EverQuest. It would be ridiculous to ignore that and just pretend that there was nothing good that's happened over 20 years while still holding true to these tenets, while still holding true to what makes Pantheon Pantheon. but he also just really stood up and said Pantheon needs to stand on its own. If you're going to choose to play Pantheon, you need to do it against World of Warcraft. And I'm not saying it's going to beat World of Warcraft, but if the option to play World of Warcraft is there, Pantheon has to be something that's more interesting to you. If the option to play Ashes of Creation is there, why would you play Pantheon? The closer it is to EverQuest, the less reason there is to play it, because you'll just go play EverQuest, you know?
Yeah. You know, and the thing is, I do cut some people some slack sometimes when I hear things like that, when I hear people, you know, get upset or get scared, because I do think that is what it is more than anything. It's when you're scared of something, you tend to get conservative, right? We tend to pull back. We tend to clam up and close up, put a shell around ourselves when we're scared of things. And people want Pantheon to be successful, and they want it to be the game that they want it to be. And I think we all share common things, like all those things you talked about right there. We have those common threads. But when they see one feature they're worried about or something that frightens them, then it becomes a reactionary situation where you're just closing off to new ideas because you're afraid that it's going to turn into something that you don't like. And, you know, and to be fair, there's a lot of current MMOs that have a lot of features that, you know, we should be afraid of. We don't want a lot of this stuff, but that's not to say it's just a copy of EverQuest. It's not. It's an evolution, but it's just a reaction. I think it's just a fear reaction a lot of times. And again, I'm not wholly unsympathetic to the person who really is trying to hold the ship together in their mind, you know, but you got to trust in Joppa, you got to trust in Bendine and the team at VR to deliver. They know what they're doing. They're not ignorant to this fact. And I think that quote from Joppa, you know, if you don't hear it in that, you're not paying attention. You're not listening.
And the biggest problem I have, and I agree with you, I can also sympathize. While I may be on a different side, I understand it. But where I struggle to understand is when people are holding on to things about the game that are no longer true or is old information that has been clearly dispelled or clearly commented on, and they still hold on to it like VR has said this is going to be the case. And it's like you have to let go. Like there's a huge amount of people in the community that are fighting so hard for, we want more information. We need clear decisions. I want to hear exactly what this is. And when they get it, they just pretend it's not said because it's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And then like all these expectations are built up, and everyone points fingers at developers and points fingers at Blizzard and all these other companies, right, that did them wrong. But I've said this forever, like when your expectations aren't on point and you've overset your expectations, or you've set expectations that are counter to the information that's out there, what do you want a company to do? Like if the company comes out and says, this is not going to be an EQ clone, this is going to be a modern MMORPG, but the things you loved about EverQuest, like grouping, open world, rare items, difficulty, death penalty is going to be there. At what point are you okay with the important details and let them develop the rest into a modern game? Because if World of Warcraft right now was everything that World of Warcraft was, but it had, you know, open world, it had, you know, difficulty, you couldn't solo ever, there were more rare items and rare events, people would love it, right? And that's with everything else that it already has. The thing that people dislike so much about MMORPGs is those missing components, because WoW is not a cash shop game, right? It doesn't have that. They don't nickel and dime you in World of Warcraft. You pay for a sub, or you can pay for a sub with in-game money. That's about it, right? So like a lot of the things that people fear in like the Korean MMOs, that somehow most people don't even play them, and they just hear about how horrible they are and hear about these horrible pay to win stuff, right? If you take all those things that Pantheon wants as tenets and you would put it into WoW, it would be amazing. And if VR can do that, not with a WoW clone, I'm not trying to say that, but to take these things and modernize them. I don't know what that looks like. VR knows better than me. I'm going to trust them. You said trust them. There's just so many people who are not willing to trust, even when they come out and say something. You know, you would say like, well, how do we know that? And then Joppa comes out and says it, and they still don't want to accept it. Well, how do you trust them?
That's how you know that. That's how you know that. Like, I know, I mean, I don't get that part of it at all. That's the part I'm not sympathetic to. It's like when they tell you something, listen, you know, like listen to what they're saying and understand that excitement is a double-edged sword. You know, we can get super excited, but then we can also get caught up in our own narratives, right? In our own beliefs. And we get our own ideas and we roll with it. And it's like, no, you got to step back and listen to what's actually being said. So,
and you also have to understand that there's no MMORPG out there where every single design decision is something you love. Every MMORPG has pieces you love, pieces that are whatever, and pieces you dislike. Every one, including EverQuest. So when decisions are made that you're not a fan of, go back to the things you do like. Like understand the pieces you do like. And if it ends up being enough, you're going to be fine. You're going to love the game. And if it isn't, then it won't be.
Then go build your own MMO. You have that option. That is an option for you to go build your own MMO. You really can do it.
It reminds me of the old Louis C.K. joke where the guy's complaining about like the cell phone signal. He's like, go build your own then. You don't like Verizon. Go build your own.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, again, you guys can catch more discussion like this and opening the content community by checking out that VOT roundtable. Again, you can find it right now on Twitch. Just go to their Pantheon_VOT channel and you can check that out. And it's pretty long. It's got a lot into it. It's pretty cool. So set some time aside and check it out. But so that's a fiery topic. Are we ready to get in and have a little bit of fun?
Yeah. Let's lighten it up.
All right. So very fitting question here from VR's Twitter. They say, I love this. I love when Kilson starts it like this. He says, in one word, good luck. Good luck, Kilson. Good luck. Keep trying, but good luck. He says, tell us what you think about real life holidays being celebrated in game. And he doubled down in this one. He said, remember, just one word. Before I start reading, do you want to guess how successful that was?
Yeah. You know, I'm going to say 2%. 2% maybe at the most, 2.5 perhaps.
So let's go ahead through some different stuff here. Jorgen Wickstrom said normal, but then he followed it up with, I guess that works. If you follow it up with an explanation after providing your word, maybe it's okay. No,
it's all cheating.
Okay. Well, he says normal. He says all cultures have celebrated holidays since the first day the sun rose. That they coincide with our holidays is just convenient. So interesting. Basgrim pulled a me. And he put the dashes in between and change dash of dash pace. And he says, that's one word, right? Libwick said, should fit into the game lore. Should be a small side note of the lore rather than something in the front of the lore. DM Harms says, unimaginative. Then he also says, familiar or cozy. He said, this one's hard to put my mixed feelings into one word. So
like he took like 3 separate one-word answers and is like, I'm gonna respond to three one-words. So that still works, you know.
Nimufe is the first person and one of the only people on here that actually just put one word, gimmicky. Steven says one word, fun. And then he said reminiscing, tossing snowballs at everybody at Freeport and EQOA. Had to get the snowballs from the snowman and do a little quest from him. So much fun. That kind of stuff is fun.
Yeah, but I have to disagree with that though. Like snow isn't a holiday. Snow is a way of life. Like we have 6 months of
Canada.
snow here. Yeah, right. Exactly. I got to represent the snow countries here because like if snow was a holiday, you know.
Well, that's why you get 2 weeks off. I don't get anything off.
Oh man, if I got time off for every time we had snow, I would never work. So.
Let's see. How would you say this guy's name? Buckna?
Bayakna. Yeah, Bayakna.
Yeah. Right. He says conflicting. Says, in some ways, I feel it takes away from the world when suddenly Norrath or Azeroth is celebrating Christmas. Why? In other ways, it often conflicts with the actual holidays and spending time with family. I'd love to see original world-built holidays. Disposalist says unimmersive.
That's probably the best one-word answer I've seen. It's, you know, it takes a word that we don't like anyway and flips it to the negative. Unimmersive. I don't even know if that's a real word, but I enjoy it.
I might have to put a note into Webster that we don't make that a word. But Lorne says no. He says role-playing games should have their own lore-related holidays.
I agree.
Frogzer, the moderator of VOT, she says, if holidays must be celebrated, then make them fit into the culture of the game world. No Santas, no Christmas trees, no Easter bunny, leprechauns, etc. No harvest festival with turkeys. We play the game to escape real life, not to see it in the game.
Yeah.
Our man Furious. Yeah. Our man Furious Pierre just said no.
Okay, I'm going to stop you here because I do want to have a conversation with Furious Pyre. I don't know if everybody who we do the Twitter, like when we read their tweets, if they actually listen to this show or not. I know we call them out and we say we're going to do it, but I don't know if they listen to it. But Furious Pyre, if you do listen to this show, I want to talk to you. So show up, come to our chat, show up for the premiere, do something, leave a comment on the video on YouTube because I want to know why you're furious. This is the time of year where it's time to relax and not be furious and embrace our inner peace. So I'm calling Furious Pyre to come forward.
Eric is calling out the Pantheon community. I love it. And the last one here is Dice of Rolling. And he just says right away, okay, this is not a one-word response, but what if in-game holidays had their own lore and actually happen at different times than the real ones? That could be cool and immersive. And you kind of said, we've heard that a bit through this. So what are your thoughts on this, Eric?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. And I do like the idea of specific holidays in game, not like real world ones. Somebody had a really good idea. I don't remember where I read it, but somebody said something about like a craft fair, right? Like make a week of crafting week in Pantheon where all the crafters get some sort of like, I don't know, or highlighted in some way, or at least made, get some sort of bonus or featured in some way. Or you could do something like a class week, make March 15th Paladin Day in Pantheon. I think that would be pretty cool. I like kind of stuff like that.
We'll do February 29th can be Ranger Day.
I would be a fool to agree to that. So I'm not going to agree to that right now because that cannot work. Every day is Ranger Day, man. Are you kidding me? Like it's just every day is a holiday for a Ranger. So yeah, I don't know. I prefer to see it like lore specific or something like I talked about, like class specific, crafter specific, something like that. What about you?
Yeah, I need it to be lore. I don't need it to even be the same time as holidays that we have. You know what I would really like to see for holidays or like celebration events are the days of arrivals.
That's a great idea.
Right. So like the arrival days of, everybody to the planet would be really cool thing to have like as a celebration. So
that would be really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Like the day of the gnome's arrival. And
that's 9 holidays right there. So
exactly. That works.
It'd be awesome. Yeah. So again, I just make it lore. I mean, you don't have to mimic our holidays. I do kind of, I'm not Captain Immersive or anything, but I don't love them. I've never really done many holiday events, if I'm honest with you. Like if there's a really cool mount or like an item, I'll go for it. And that's about the extent. I never did almost any of the achievements in World of Warcraft for any of the holiday events, almost none of them. I think there was a brew holiday and I did some of that and that's about it. It was about drinking. So
yeah, that makes sense. You know which one comes to mind actually now that you're talking about that makes me think of is in Guild Wars 2, they do around Christmas time, they do the Super Adventure Box. And it's this weird retro, like 8-bit themed thing where you go in and they have like all the 8-bit sounds, like the chip tunes, like playing in these levels that they've designed and these areas they've designed. It's weird because it is associated with Christmas time, but it's not Christmassy at all. It's just a very specific Guild Wars thing. And I have to say, I love the Super Adventure Box. It is so much fun. I haven't done it in quite a few years, but I was going to check it out and see if they're doing it this year because it should be coming up soon. But stuff like that, just time of the year type related stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good stuff. I think a lot of the community wants that kind of stuff too. So hopefully that's what we'll see in Pantheon. So the next one, this is the last piece here for the VR news and notes is community debate. What is the best memory that you have of a GM interaction in an MMORPG? And there are some really good ones here. So big shout out to the community for this. I'm going to read through these. They're great. So Mirth or Jared Woodhouse, he says, I remember shortly after swearing at another player, a GM appeared next to me. He kept teleporting to my location trying to talk to me. I thought if I could ignore him, I would be safe. I wasn't. He killed me, and then he told me to stop mistreating other players. And Tony, these are good. Lucille said, I loved when the GMs ran events on for a war on the Shards of Delea server. It was very fun fighting off a multi-continent attack. It's cool.
Big epic events like that run by GMs. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah. Rebecca S says in Vanguard's later days, when the GMs made a tribute to the Black Wolf of Unleashed after he had passed away, Black Wolf was a pillar of the community and never just caring about his guild, but the server as well. It was an honest, clear thanks to someone who made Vanguard a better world. Really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Katuk says another instance of one was the first GM run events I was involved in. They led a ice giant assault on Hallis in EverQuest. Brought a lot of the zone there and had such a good fight. First time I ever encountered anything that was quite that awesome.
Yep.
Jaren here says that, or Jaron, Verdun restoring a deleted EQ character.
Wow.
So that's nice. A number of guides were pretty great too. Perella was totally awesome sauce. There was an ogre that used to hang out in East Commons helping newbies and handing out cookies. I think his name was Sigan. I'm not entirely sure anymore. So just like memorable, like location specific GMs that hung out.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember their names.
Yeah. Lisa Nailwack says, winning the real life team quest at one of the first EQ fanfares in San Diego and being awarded the epic staff of the gathering by Brad and a bunch of the EQ dev team.
Wow.
The winning team was announced at the banquet. That was an awesome experience. That's really
Holy
cool.
cow. That's big time.
Yeah. Brandis says, I remember running through the fields of Quanos Hills when EQ2 first released, and I stumbled upon a small hole in the ground. I followed it into the end and found a Ratonga GM sitting there. He said hello, and he gave me cookies. I don't know. Apparently EQ GMs have cookies.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Sarah Sin says, it was during the Burning Crusade WoW X-Pack. A boss in our heroic dungeon was bugged. I was able to get a GM to help. He came in and killed it for us so we could move on. My guildmates thought I was amazing because of it. That's awesome. Got a little bit of the rub.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Zandros says, I was in closed beta for Star Wars The Old Republic, and I was reporting a bugged quest, and the GM came to my location. The GM was a level 1 character and forgot to enable invincibility. As soon as she spawned, she got wrecked.
Oh, man, that would have been funny. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah. A couple more here. Crazy Dragon TV says vanilla WoW GMs would show up in the game and talk to you and interact with you in the community, and even would spawn mini bosses in the cities at times. That was fun. Frank says, original EQ, a GM was handing out Batwing Crunchies in the Common Lands. Another GM ran up and told her about a mysterious dragon that was terrorizing Wraith Mountains. She called all heroes. We made our way to Wraith Mountains and fought waves of skeletons, giant skeletons, and a bone dragon controlled by a GM. Epic.
Yeah. You know, EverQuest did a lot of stuff like that. Like somebody mentioned the ice giants in Hallis. I can't think of any specifically, but I know that they love to do stuff like that.
Yeah. So here's the last one, and I'm going to expand on this one a bit. So Gast here says, I always made them tell me a joke after they helped me. Some of the corniest jokes I've ever heard, but I loved it. So what he's referring to is, if you didn't play World of Warcraft, if you ever talked to a GM, it was known throughout the entire game community that after a GM helped you, if they said, is there anything else you need, that you were allowed to ask them to tell a joke. And it seemed like every GM had really cheesy World of Warcraft or Warcraft dad jokes, essentially. So I went and I grabbed a few of those for the community, which I'm going to read now because Gast had that great comment, and share some with you. So the first one is, what do you get when you mix a gnome with a worgen? And the answer is a microorganism.
Yeah.
The second one, how many dwarfs does it take to screw in a light bulb? 2. 1 to hold the light bulb and 1 to drink until the room starts spinning.
So that's just applicable to every game.
Every
I mean,
dwarf.
that's not World of Warcraft specific. That's dwarves in general.
What do you call a gnome mage on the run from the police? A small, medium at large.
Oh, God.
That's so good.
Jeez.
You know, medium like magic and psychic.
Oh,
That's a good one. What do you call a tauren inside a gnome's house? A tauren's like a big a cow looking thing, right? Stuck.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
What do you call a worgen mage? And worgens are like werewolves, so, you know.
Yeah.
A labracadabrador.
Oh my God. These dad jokes, 100%
They're
dad
so
jokes.
good. Couple more. What do you call 3 paladins in a jacuzzi? A bubble bath. So
I don't get that. Okay, you
so
gotta explain that one.
paladins were known for popping an invincibility bubble and running away. There's just memes everywhere.
Okay.
Like Paladin gets in trouble, pop a bubble, and you use your Hearthstone while you're bubbled and get away.
I got you.
It's like coward.
See.
So yeah, bubble bath. This one's great. This can also be in any game. Just think of a GM saying this to you too. Your mama's so fat, chain lightning hit her 3 times.
That's pretty good, man. Pretty good.
And the last one, do you know why gnomes can't be paladins? Poor little guys can't reach the light.
Aw. That's pretty good too. I like that one too. That's quite good.
So yeah, I had to read those. When he brought up the jokes, they're super corny, but I know some of you out there laughed, even if you don't want to admit it. So they're great. For me, I've already told the stories a bunch of times. I'm not going to tell them again. I was banned a couple times, and those were my GM interactions, so they weren't really positive. They were both about items. One guy handed me an Ixar ceremonial chest plate, like right when they came out, thinking I was his friend because we were sitting next to each other and looked exactly the same. And I logged off. When I logged back in, the GM summoned me to take it back. That was the first
What did you do wrong? I don't understand.
I fought that good fight, but he didn't want to hear it. And then the other time I got in trouble was when me and a buddy organized loot stealing from Dragon and Sky Shrine that they were fighting. We were invisible in the corner, and once we saw the person who was doing loot control stand up from the mob, I ran over, grabbed the robe off of it, and we teleported out. It was like I was a necro or a wizard. He was a necro. It was like, it literally was like 3 seconds. It was like, boom, got the loot, teleport out. And it's like, what happened? And we got in trouble for that. We actually sold it before the GM could even get in touch with us. We like black market traded that thing so fast. Like, where's the robe? We're like, what robe?
True rogue.
I think we got banned for like, I don't know, a few days. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was pretty funny.
Funny.
And they took the money that we got and took the robe back from the guy that bought it from us and everything. So any stories from you?
You know what? No, man, I've lived a sheltered life, my MMO life of having to interact with GMs. I've been a part of GM events. Like I've done things like they were talking about with the Ice Giants in Hallis and the, things like in Kithakor Forest when they would make the, they sort of took it to the next level, but no direct interaction with GMs. So I'm sort of sheltered in that regard.
Oh, well, we'll get some in Pantheon then for you.
Yeah, if I hang around with you long enough, apparently I will.
Yeah, that'll happen. But anyway, that's it for VR news and notes.
When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about. Okay, so this week, it's another question we're going to do for a community discussion from the newly minted Harvesting and Crafting Czar at Visionary Realms, that being our friend David Nefel Beach. He had a question in the forums. He wanted to know what the community thought about the process of choosing trade skills for your characters. So here's what he said. He said, would you prefer to have to select a profession or potentially 2 professions and be locked into that choice? Or would you prefer to start off as a generalist, try a little bit of everything, and then over time specialize in the things you really want your character to do? So it's also important to say here, Nefel said, this isn't like a design decision that they're making in VR. This isn't like nothing hinges on this. He's just throwing it out there to hear some thoughts. So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing because, we think about classes. We pick our class right at the very start, but we don't always pick our crafting profession. So here's what some people in the community thought about this. First up was Renarius. And he said, at first, I would have to say I'd prefer to choose a trade skill and be stuck with just that one. But maybe having the option of dropping that skill, starting fresh with a new one would be okay too. C. Medina said, I would love to see one subclass and one main class to focus on crafting wise. I've played MMOs where you pick one subclass like cooking, mining, and gathering, and then your main crafting class like tailoring or leatherworking. So it's sort of like one evolving into the next one. First said, I liked a lot how Project Gorgon approached trade skills. You largely started by dabbling in areas that you ran across that interested you. So from there, they built on each other until you ended up specialized. So for example, like cheese making. And if you know anything about Project Gorgon, it's very, silly like that. It's very like specific down to the very granular details like that. But what it first goes on to say is this largely meant your ability to specialize was unlimited technically, but practically limited by the immense time and energy it took you to progressively go higher in ranks for each one and then mix them into specialized ones. So very like complicated system, but very specific as well. I really like what Trasic said here. He says, if you look at trade skills as a list of recipes that you have access to, then the only real option is just to pick which list you want. It tends to lead to like a boring and usually economically infeasible crafting system of grinding one recipe to unlock the others. What if instead you look at trade skills as a web of interrelated techniques and knowledge that you have mastered? Then things get a lot more interesting, and there's no longer a linear progression. Recipes could require specific knowledge and techniques at a specific mastery level in order to complete, rather than a specific crafting class. Those masteries could come from very different areas within the web. Nodes within the web could have prerequisites before you could unlock them and training them. It could be very complex and interlinked. So he's sort of looking at it from a different perspective there, which I like. Duskgrass said, I would almost hope for perception-like concepts where the players who are interested follow the quest lines or trade skill pings that lead them eventually to like a tradesman's college or a union or something like that. Our buddy Ben and I, and fan fiction author, said a level 10 character can't dabble in CC, healing, DPS, or tanking. Why would we change that for Pantheon when it comes to crafting? You either need others or you don't. We've already been told both in combat faction choices and in your perception choices, they matter and they have long-lasting effects. The rival mob said, I think there should be 2 tiers of crafting. The everyday crafted stuff, such as fishing and cooking, which you should be able to get all of these and level them if you like. But then another tier for the trade skills you would like to master with like a cap of maybe 2. These would be trade skills that are more involved, require a good amount of work to get on top of your trade. And then the last one is from Texan. He said a mechanic that would be interesting is a master and apprentice type of arrangement. Instead of being able to learn trades just from the NPCs, you should be able to learn from other players. Or perhaps you would be able to learn styles and patterns from players while you learn the core functions of your trade from NPCs. It sounds very RP, but it would be immersive and add a lot of aspects to the game. So that's the views from the forums. And overall, I think there's a ton of interesting ideas here and lots of different opinions. And I think if we were to like split it down the middle, it'd be like half and half in terms of who wants to be a generalist and who wants to be a specialist. But some of those variations are pretty interesting. Like the tiered approach that rival mob said sounds like it could kind of satisfy both camps. Trasik's more freeform concept, minus it's funny when I read that one, it made me think immediately of Wolfson. Okay. Yeah. Remember the 3 concentric circles, right? How you picked your skill nodes, right? What if it was like that in terms of like your crafting profession? How cool would that be?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, and I don't know what's good for a game. I don't know what the best system is, so to speak, for a game like Pantheon. I think Ben and I has the underlying philosophy correct, though, always talking about independence or interdependence and identity in crafting, just like they have it in the classes. So I think that sort of plays into it. What Texan said about the learning from other players is a really cool idea too, and definitely fits with that underlying philosophy too. So I think hopefully Nefel gets some information from this and some ideas. But what about you, Minus? Do you read any of those sort of like speak to you, or something else you're thinking about how you would pick your trade skill?
I think what you should have to do is you have to apply to a college, and then you have to be accepted. And then if you want to do it, you have to take classes. And if you're not in class, you miss what's covered, and you have to take tests to get your degree. And once you get your degree, you can actually do your profession. So like if you want to be a woodworker, you got to be on Pantheon every day between 12 and 3 to be in class and taking notes. So you can take no, I'm just kidding.
I was trying to figure out if you were serious or not. I'm like,
somebody said that and I was laughing because I was thinking about it too. No, I am all about very, very, very specialized, like gathering, let everybody gather everything so that you can make money on gathering. Right. Yeah. I think that the gathering economy should be pretty solid if everybody can gather and mine and do all that stuff. But when it comes to actually creating items, I think that you should have to pick one, and then from the one be very deeply specialized. And what that does is create a much broader base where people still need each other. So again, and I've used this example before, if I wanted to do it, I wanted to be a blacksmith. So if I want to be a blacksmith, I then specialize once I get to a certain level in weapon making. And once I specialize in weapon making, I can choose what type of weapons am I going to be the master making? Well, I want to be the master making daggers. So now my whole experience is I can make generalist items in blacksmithing that are simple. But then once I want to get into special weapons, I can only make special daggers. And every single piece, whether it's plate armor, leather armor, cloth armor, everybody would have to specialize to be able to make those great items, and they're not going to make other things in each one of those categories. So I just think it would be really cool if it was a very deep specialization, so that if I'm a master blacksmith, but my thing is daggers, I still need someone who's great at making swords if I need a sword, and there'd have to be interaction between. So I would really like to see it broken down to almost like the keeper system, where you're flagging all this different stuff so people have a unique experience to make crafting have a unique experience. That would make me more willing to do it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think committing to something is important, and not having every option available at every given moment is part of the idea here. So yeah, cool. It's a good question, and I'd be interested to see how they're going to implement it, because I think that you definitely want to tie it into the overall philosophy of the game. But cool. Okay, so going from that, we're going to catch up on some introductions, because we had our last 2 episodes were the interview with Kevin Jordan, so we didn't do any introductions. So we've got some people to catch up on, and first up is Brigale. I'm not sure how you say it exactly. Anyway. He joined up on the forums and introduced himself. He said, "It would seem I've mixed up my port spells again, but this time I've arrived not only in the wrong location, but somehow on the wrong time. This world looks strangely different, yet there seems to be something familiar about it too at the same time. I hope to be able to make new friends in this strange world, as it seems I have no way of getting back to the city of Eridan. As I look around, I see evidence of my wife's activities here already on Terminus. May our paths cross and our adventures be enjoyable and many." And now Brigale mentioned his wife, and who gave her own intro as well. And that's what we're going to talk about next. And she's known as Sparrow Littlesong. So I don't know if Brigale didn't take the last name when they got married or whatever, but he's just Brigale and she's Sparrow Littlesong. So, so here's what Sparrow had to say. She says, "My husband and I have played MMOs together since the EQ1 days. Really looking forward to losing ourselves at Terminus. They've played EQ1 and 2, Vanguard, WoW, Lord of the Rings, like basically every MMO that's ever existed, it sounds like." She says, "I probably spent most time playing EQ1 and 2 and WoW. Love exploring the worlds and long involved quest lines. Enjoy crafting. I've liked it in pretty much every game I've played, and I like to raid with a friendly guild, but don't find much use for it outside of that. For me, it's about teamwork and friendships, less about the fun of raiding. I can wander through worlds for hours, just enjoying the scenery and the surprises around each corner. I tend to play druids and rangers, which reflect my nature, love, and self, but I'm unrepentant alcoholic. Discovery and new experiences in the game is what it's all about, and I get bored quickly with repetitive quests and raids and that kind of stuff. Can't wait to wander through Terminus and meet many of you, and we've signed up to hop in during alpha, so impatiently waiting for that day to arrive." So I gave Sparrow's introduction a little extra attention here. It's a little long, but they're both actually guildies with us, minus in the Plus Guild, as you know. So, can I say, being a guildie has its privileges, and it helps out sometimes. Next up is somebody with a name that actually puts fear into me just trying to say it. And I know you're probably running out the door right now looking at this name in the notes, but I'm going to give it a shot. It's Aptragangamo. Not bad. Okay. Also known as AMT. So we're just going to go with that.
Yeah, I would have just stuck with AMT.
Yeah, I should have. But anyway, so AMT said, "I just wanted to make my quick intro, my longer intros in the Necromancer forums, because I found the amount of posts woefully lacking compared to the other ones. I'm an avid fan of the genre, enjoy creativity and a variety in all its forms that games like this encourage. Usually I join guilds in support roles, such as the crafter or DPS or shopkeeper. I like to wear many hats, and I dislike being pigeonholed into a specific role. I hope to be here for a long time. Look forward to meeting the community. So kind regards, AMT." And then lastly is somebody with a really good Elven name, which I'm much more comfortable saying, and I'll probably actually screw it up. But her name is Eliadan Mithethiel. Got the first name right. The last name was terrible. Anyway, we'll just call her Eliadan.
All right.
And she says, "I just joined the community. I'm still reading up to find that this project tries, I hope, to take the best from the old good EQ, fix what didn't work, add fresh ideas and talent from the actual times. Looking forward to jump into the game along with the beta. So nice to meet you all, Eliadan. But I think she's on the same page with us there, Minus, talking about with our little intro there. That's right. Evolve the genre.
Use the info around us. If there's info around you, use it. It helps you make a decision, whether it's good or bad. It helps you make a decision.
Absolutely. And that's it for this week's community discussions.
Let's talk content creator updates and new additions to Pantheon.Plus.
All right. So there's been quite a bit of news on Pantheon.Plus. We had an article by Benethale. See, now I'm saying other people's names. Ben and I. I'm
you made
still
him into an
thinking
elf
about
or something
that.
there.
Yeah, I was still thinking about that name. Like you read it and just went right in it, and I'm like confused as I'm reading it. Ben and I put out a very long. This is actually a full story, and he put it up just recently on Pantheon.Plus. You should be able to check that out if you like his lore and the little tidbits he's put on there. He's also done a lot of longer stories on the forums. He's actually transferred one of his very long stories, like in depth, deep into the Pantheon lore, something you can really sink your teeth into on the website. So check that out. We had a Pantheon.Plus profile from Isin. He's also a guildie, so give him a shout out. Drac put together a small little 5-minute video. It was like P+ great moments. It was like great moments and videos and just some funny little things that happened in 2020. I had no idea he was doing it. It was really fun because I kind of said this on Pantheon.Plus U this week, but I don't really get a lot of time to go back and watch our episodes. Like we're constantly working on the next thing. So like some of these clips I completely forgot about, and I'm just sitting there laughing. Like when Vandrad's talking about, with me doing naked horse corpse recoveries or something.
My favorite moment is still Militus in that draft when he gets drafted late rounds and he's so just relieved. He's like, I was having a panic attack. I was freaking out. I didn't think it was going to happen. And he's just like, the joy on his face makes me laugh.
Because he wouldn't draft himself. Like he refused to draft. Meanwhile, that was my first pick, was me. So.
You had no problem. He's like, no, I'm not doing that.
So he ended up on Nathan's team. But so that was a fun little video there. Theric, you got some passion out there about lore, about sort of where is it? Get it back on the website, kind of talking through how you're keeping the lore. And it seemed to get a pretty good response from the community.
Yeah, people seem to have liked it. I actually, somebody commented that they actually paused the video so they could read, because I scroll through the book. So they're like, I can't read it anymore. So I'm going to pause the video and read each page as you flip through it. And I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. That at least I can provide that. But yeah, I kind of tried something different, a little different, not my typical storytelling narrative kind of scripted thing. This was more of had an idea, wanted to go down and record it real quick and get it out there. So I hope people enjoy it. It's it's definitely a plea to bring back the lore on the website.
Yeah. And then Basgrim put out a video called The Road to Alpha for Pantheon. So we just went back and got a lot of clips and different things that kind of talk about where we could see Alpha, where they're at on the path, not a specific date, but just kind of like, where are we on that road and when do we think it's going to come type of thing. So a pretty good video, got a lot of good reception there. And then it was really exciting. And Drac is a huge part of this. He reached out to Moxie. What's his Moxis? Moxis. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm not good with names. But from the group Disparate Worlds, who talks a lot about Pantheon and Ashes of Creation. And we'll now be featuring their videos for Pantheon. Probably not the Ashes of Creation only ones. But when they talk about Pantheon or they talk about both of them, we're going to feature them on Pantheon.Plus now. So you'll see them with the purple banner. They got their own logo on there. It's getting fancy. But we're super excited to have them part of the community because that's what Pantheon.Plus is all about. More people. Let's get more people in, right?
Yeah, bring them in. It's good stuff.
Yep. And then the last two things, obviously, you'll see episode 50 of Pantheon.Plus U that we just referenced. It was a fun episode, went a little bit longer. We talked a lot about some of the things that we highlighted during the year with different guests we had. And then we got into a topic on NPC information that really was good discussion. It got deep.
Really good.
Yeah, it got really deep. We had a really packed green room. And not only was the green room packed, everybody who came on had some really good discussion to be had. So it was a lot of fun. Check that out. It's a little longer, but it will be the last one we do for the year as we're going to pick back up at the next Dev Roundtable in January. And then speaking about the Dev Roundtable with Jimmy Lane Torque, everybody knows, that came up as well. We'll be back for the Dev stream. Same thing, I think. Round table stream. You guys get it. But other news from us, just as a reminder, we've never taken a week off from the rewind. It's the holiday. We have a lot of stuff going on. I'm working like crazy. If Eric's relaxing and drinking beer. But just these next couple of weeks so that, we understand a lot of people are going to be enjoying with their families, and this is a time of year where people kind of take a break. We're going to take a little bit of a break as well. So you're not going to see a rewind for about 2 weeks. Is this what we planned on? Right.
I think January 10th, we will be back, which is the second Sunday in January. That's correct. So off until January 10th.
Yep. So January 10th, we'll come back on fire with the rewind. And I think earlier that week is the developer stream. So you'll probably see a Pantheon.Plus use. So we'll come back strong that week. But just some quick stats about Pantheon.Plus, since that's what we kind of talk about in this session. I'm not going to go into all the stats from Pantheon.Plus U episode 50. You guys can check that out. But, our site right now, this site that we wanted to put together to bring the community together, to share information, to be a one-stop place to learn about whatever you want to learn about Pantheon. Search your favorite class, search a keyword you're not sure of, search perception, see what Japa's talked about, right? Right now, this little site that's only been, in its current form for not too long, we now have 667 total videos that you can access on this site, that you can go through, that you can search lore, you can search whatever you want. 667 total different videos from all sorts of creators. We already have 20 articles, which we just started the article system. Anything from lore to opinion pieces to, rank them, in was a video before, but now we're doing it in an article form. And so we're almost at 700 pieces of media, and we're growing every week. And it's awesome because, again, it's not just Pantheon.Plus content. It's anyone who's covering it and does so, in a way that's helpful towards the community. So we love it. That's crazy. Almost 700 videos you can go through for Pantheon on there.
Insane. Yeah, go check it out. There's so much content there. I mean, you could just spend your whole day just going over everything there. I mean, it's your one-stop shop for everything, right?
And there's going to be so much more to come. So if you get time to get on there, register for an account, comment on some videos, thumbs up stuff. Everybody that we can get to be a part of that website helps us build what's going to come. And there's going to be a ton of tools you'll want to use. So jump on board. And that's it for what's going on with us here at Pantheon.Plus.
Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. In the face of a common enemy, even the most disparate people can come together in a unified front. When the Deicide War raged on Terminus, it was a threat to all 6 races that inhabited the planet at the time. The lore speaks to how each race suffered at the hands of the Ravaging Lord. The humans and the Archae were betrayed, the dwarves were embattled, and the ogres were fighting for the survival of their clans. Only through accord could the Sacred Six of Terminus find victory, so it was the summit at Vesu, which was a mist-soaked island in the midst of 2 converging oceans that nearly disappears for months at a time. The breadth of the consequence behind the Revenant threat was unfolded to the leadership of each attending race. It was from this historic council that the decision to undertake the Sanctum Edict was made. The construction of the Silent, Frozen, and Ashen Sanctums followed. More importantly, at the summit of Vesu, after days of fervent deliberations, each member planted the herald of their people in the Crimson Sands at Vesu, swearing fealty against the Revenant until the tide consumes or the suns avail. Alas, the start of the Frail Age came when the dignitaries of the Sacred Six returned to Vesu 5 months after the suns availed, when 4 of the 6 did so. For many, a midnight pact was broken in the light of the new day, but none so significant as the one founded on Vesu. There stood only 5 posts in the wet sands of the mist-soaked isle, and on them hung only 4 heralds. The elven, human, dwarven, and Archae stood as they had always, while the ogre post was in place, yet with the herald removed. And the Darkmere post was gone entirely, as if it had never been planted in the first place. And that's the lore you know. And with that, let's check the mailbox.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it gets here, I just yell, mail! We're getting sued.
All right, so we have a couple questions here on the mailbox this week. And first we start with JJ, and he says, when it comes to races and their lore, would you be interested in learning about different customs and practices and or actually getting to witness them in game? Taking it a step further, would you like to participate in them from time to time as well? This ties a lot into the question up top about like holidays and their arrival and celebrations. I mean, to me, what he's asking is, do you want to dig deep and be a part of the lore? So I'm going to assume you're going to say yes. And, I do too. And I think that you could do some unique things with perception where you could actually like witness old events through like the perception system, not necessarily be there, but like witness them in spirit, which would be really cool. So I'd be down for that. How about you?
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting pieces of this could be something to do with the archive. The archive, when you look at the race page, it describes them as a very celebratory people. They're always about, basically partying, for lack of a better word, but they enjoy celebration a lot. And part of one of their rituals is their true birth, where they become infused with elemental powers, that kind of thing. I'd love to be a part of that. Like, what if your character could, that ritual took place, once a month or something like that, and your character had to go through that. I think integrating that stuff into the world is very important. So yeah, definitely. I like it.
Yeah. LaFail says, do you feel that with the progressing development of Pantheon, your interest in other MMOs or desire to meaningfully invest time in other MMOs is waning? Do you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, sure. I 100%. Yes, definitely. It's hard to be interested in things that you don't want, like, I don't know how I want to say this, but like
there's
lesser
a definitive
versions of
end, right? Like there's a definitive end.
Definitely. And it's hard to also go back and play a game that's been out for a long time. You never feel like you're really getting in at the ground level. I like to get into the ground level of things, and it's for me to do something too, I like to be fully invested. I don't like to dabble. I'm sort of an all-in kind of guy. So I can't go all in on anything else right now. I just don't have the time or the mental energy to do it. So Pantheon gets my full attention, and nothing else does right now.
Yeah, I've had, since I started following Pantheon, I would say that playing other MMOs is extraordinarily difficult. I will dabble. That, Theric, I'm a dabbler. I've spent some time in DDO. I've spent some time in EverQuest. I've spent some time in Black Desert. I've spent some time in Albion. So yeah, I'll definitely play and learn. And I even got to max level or close to max level in BDO, which is a pretty big grind at the end. So there's definitely some things I really like, and I like to experience MMOs a lot. I talked about this recently in the unofficial Pantheon Discord, just like that. I like to learn things. I want to experience things, good and bad, so I can kind of get more and more knowledge about, MMOs. For me, I was really into Borderlands 3 when it came out, so I was really looking forward to that. So I jumped into that hard. I've jumped very hard into Monster Hunter World. I still haven't even played the expansion though. And I'd like to eventually. But the only game right now that's soon-ish, and maybe, who knows, that I know when it comes out I will be obsessed with, will probably be the new Diablo. Diablo 4 I will play obsessively. Like, you guys are gonna have to peel me off there to make content from time to time, possibly, or that's the one thing besides Pantheon that I know I'm gonna play. It's not in place of Pantheon, but that's gonna be a big game for me when that hits.
I'll be there with you too. I gotta play it. I gotta play it for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Ash R says, my question is, what do you think should be the emphasis of design on the first 10 levels or so of an MMO game? Personally, I want to feel what the game's going to be like in the first 10 levels. I mean, you can make like levels 1, 2, 3, I'd say maybe even to 5, a little easier, a little bit of a learning experience. But 5 to 10, I should start to know what this game's all about. I don't think there's anything worse than when a game you start playing a game, you kind of get a feel for what it's like, and then they just, boom, change it on you. Like, oh, now it's hard. Now I have to group. Like, I think the quicker you hit people with what Pantheon's all about, the better. My personal opinion. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. One of the things that we hear a lot and we see a lot is how the end game is the real game begins, right? I think that's so backwards. It's such a weird, strange way of constructing a game. The real game, happens the entire time. Like, even in the first 10 levels, that should be, I know people who like altaholics, like Sparrow was saying in her introduction, like, they just love creating characters, and they only play characters up to level 10, you know? Like, what if that's your entire game experience? You should be able to have a great experience. I mean, it's not going to be, you're not going to do everything, obviously, but that you should feel like, be able to say, yes, I played Pantheon. I got a character to level 10. I feel like I played Pantheon. You know, if you do that in a lot of games where it's like level 10 is over in 10 seconds and it really isn't representative of anything, because the end game is where all the, where they've really focused the design on. So yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. And the last one here is from Eddie Dean. He says, I'm a fan of horizontal gear progression. He says, I know Minus is a fan of vertical progression. Would you compromise with gear being horizontal if there is a vertical progression system similar to Final Fantasy XI's merit system, or EQ's, I think he means AA system?
Yeah.
Horizontal gear progression gives different build options, as well as keeping gear and content relevant when we are out of vanilla and get into new expansions. I personally prefer the gear progression in Final Fantasy XI compared to the gear progression of EQ. Okay, so I'm going to start on this one.
Yeah. So
here's what's interesting. You know, World of Warcraft, I've talked about this a lot. In Legion and the last boss and the last dungeon, I want to say there was 11 bosses. For some reason, 9 or 11 stand in my head. And I had down my interface, I made macro buttons that changed my gear and changed my talent build. And I had them, you know, the top one, I had 9 down. So it was 9 or 11 or whatever down, right? And that was how many boss fights there were. So when I was on the first boss fight, I'd click my gear set on and I'd click my talent set. And I kept all that gear in my bag. So there's a little bit of horizontal progression there, right? Like I have all this gear that I use for all the fights. I have a different build and a different gear set so that I can maximize myself. And I carry all this gear in my bags. I have like 3 or 4 bags of gear, right? So that's okay to me. But the thing is that gear, when I get to the next tier of rating, I'm replacing it all. I still have horizontal gear for different situations, but I'm replacing it more often and evolving my gameplay. What I don't like about a very strict horizontal system is that what it leads to is very long-term play styles. Like if I'm going to play a rogue and I'm going to wear gear or this gear, I'm going to play like that forever, right? Like it's not going to really evolve much because I have this horizontal gear and I put this gear on, I play a little different. I put this gear on, I play a little different. But if it's too horizontal and I'm not replacing that gear often, and I'm not getting maybe like gear that enhances different skills I don't typically use, this and that. To me, it's like, I don't want to be a level 1 rogue and playing the same rogue with the same abilities, with the same loadouts at level 50. I want to constantly be changing how I play, evolving my play style, developing new play, gear that changes how I play completely. I want that to be the case. That's why I like more of a vertical, because if my class was the same from day one as it is, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road, that's super boring to me. I want to have to refigure out and be re-challenged by the game to learn a better way to play constantly. And when I say constantly, you know, once every, you know, 3, 4, 5 months or something, I don't know. Right. But that's why I like vertical personally. What are your thoughts?
You know what? That's a great answer, and it's a much better answer than I have in mind, because I don't know. I think it depends on the context. It depends on the game. Each game's, they do it differently. You know, like it's such a specific thing to each game, and I think it just depends for me. I don't want to say yes or no on a grandiose scheme, but I do think it's important to keep the class fresh, and to, you know, gear should. It's not a linear path necessarily. So I think that's what I would say the best answer I could give to that. But it also, the context is so important for me. So
yeah, I just like getting stronger too. Like, so if you're in tier 1 of a raid that's out and you're fighting through and it's hard and you get the gear from it, and you're getting stronger and you're getting stronger, and it becomes a little easier then, right? Because like you've gotten a vertical progression, you're stronger. Now you go into tier 2, which you couldn't have done without getting the gear from tier 1 because you needed to be stronger, and it starts over again. Oh, it's really hard. It's challenging, right? It's learning. My gear's not that great for this fight. So I start getting better gear in there. And now all of a sudden I'm stronger, and I can go back to that first one and I'm much stronger. Like I've evolved a lot. I like feeling that growth and strength, because I think a game that doesn't allow you to feel stronger and remembering how hard something was, then going back and being able to stomp it into the ground, I think is important to me. It doesn't mean it can't still be challenging. It can't still have punishing mechanics, but I want to feel like my character gets stronger. Like my play, my investment, my skill starts to mean something. You go and you run into an area with a really hard boss, even if it's still level 50, but your gear's better and there's a group struggling. You're like, hey, can I join you guys? And, your level of strength helps them push through. I'm not saying it's easy, but you're like, wow, this guy's really good. I want to feel like that. I want the gear to make me stronger, to make me more legendary. And I want to keep doing that. I don't ever want that to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Item identity, right? And item identity leading to class and personal identity. I think it's super important. So I agree.
And if everyone's in the same gear all the time and we're not getting gear upgrades, then it's going to get bland. And I just think that I don't want to look like anybody. I want to look cool. I want to try to be a step ahead of the average player and what I have and what people are looking at on me, like what is that? Mm-hmm. But if it gets to a point where it's all, horizontal, then we're just putting on this gear for this fight and it's the same and I'm not much stronger, but I just need it for this fight and I'm going to put this gear on for that fight. It's not as fun to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Well, that's it for the mailbox, and that's it for another episode of the Rewind. Remember, everybody, we are going to be off for 2 weeks. Don't miss us too much, but I'm sure you might see a little bit of things coming out. So keep an eye on our channel. I'm working on an opinion video that's probably going to be done in a week or so. Excited to put that out there. We'll probably see some profiles from Drax still, I'm sure, and maybe some articles and stuff. So keep in touch. We'll be live and active in the Discord for sure. Maybe playing some games with the community. Who knows? But no Rewind until, like Theric said, January 10th. So 2 weeks off. Enjoy your time. Thank you guys for supporting us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Happy holidays, everyone. See you in a couple weeks.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon.Plus Rewind. Be sure to follow Minus and all Pantheon.Plus related content on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube under the name Pantheon.Plus. Also, be sure to follow Theric at PantheonTheric on Twitter. Keep up to date on all Pantheon Rise of the Fallen information on www.Pantheon.Plus, the definitive source for all media of Pantheon. Until next time.